The committee meeting will be recorded and broadcast throughout Parliament buildings and of course online, and advise anyone who's in the public gallery that they're welcome to use their mobile devices as long as they are in airplane mode and that all devices are muted. You can connect to the Assembly Wi-Fi. Password details are available in the gallery rules, and is not permitted to take any photographs or record any of the meeting. So apologies have been received from the chairperson, Philip Brett, and Daniel McCrossan. No other apologies. Okay. Item number 2 then, declaration of members' interests. Seek agreement that members' minutes should reflect that we have already declared our financial interest in terms of the work of the committee. Are there any other further financial interests anyone wants to declare? Item number 3, there's no chairperson's business to raise. Can I refer members to the draft minutes of the meeting on the 18th of March at page 7 of our meeting pack? Are members content with the minutes as drafted?
Yeah.
Okay. Then move on to item number 5. So there's no matters arising. We are due to have the Assembly Commission in, but I don't believe that they're here yet. They were in a previous meeting and mightn't be able to make it till slightly later. So if members are agreed, we'll move on to agenda item number 7 instead, and we can come back. So that's the consideration of written evidence. So we've had written evidence from the Oireachtas Commission. I'll refer members to tab 7 of our meeting papers. Do members have any comments or further actions arising from that information? Can I get agreement that we publish these Oireachtas papers on the committee page of the Assembly website? Okay, then we also have written evidence from the Scottish Parliamentary Corporate Body. Again, tab 7 of our table papers. Have members any comments or actions arising from that? Okay, can I again seek agreement to publish these Scottish Parliament papers on the committee page of the Assembly website?
Yep.
And then just to advise members that the call for evidence on the citizen space closed on the 19th of March, and there were 74 responses received in total. You can refer members to the 11 responses received since our last meeting, and they're all included in our packs, pages 140 to 163 of our meeting papers, and then to the summary report of all the responses that were received at page 164 of the meeting papers. Can I seek agreement to publish those 11 responses that were received since the last meeting on the committee's web page?
Mm-hmm.
And then, members, the written evidence can be considered further during our deliberations that are later on in the meeting. Okay. So I guess we still don't have the.
Do you want to suspend the meeting?
We'll suspend the meeting. There's no other items that we can move on to until we hear from the Commission.
Committee Room 29. Sound. 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 Committee Room 29, Sound. Committee Room 29, Sound. Committee Room 29, Sound. Committee Room 29, Sound. Committee Room...
Before I take a few statements or take a few questions, I have an opening statement. So good afternoon, Deputy Chair and members. We welcome the opportunity to be here today and answer any further questions that you do have. But first, can I just record apologies on behalf of Andy Allen because he wasn't able to be here today. Firstly, when we appeared at the meeting of the committee on the 20th of February, we notified the Committee of the Assembly Commission's intention to bring forward amendments to the bill regarding Clause 4, which deals with temporary appointments. The Assembly Commission has now issued those amendments to you, and you've noted that you have received them, so hopefully you've had time to look at it, but we appreciate you may not have had as much time, but they will put into more detail just our potential, our amendment and what we intend for that around that issue. And in particular, the full suite of disqualification and determination provisions in Part 1 of the 2011 Act are also applied to the temporary appointments. They make clear that only one former member could ever be a member of the board at any one time. And while the bill still includes provision for the Assembly Commission to make an order in relation to temporary provisions, this has been retained as a precaution for unforeseen circumstances. But however, the bulk of the necessary detail around the temporary appointments is now on the face of the bill. The committee also asked at our last appearance which committee would scrutinise any order, and we have now proposed that that would be the Audit Committee, as it has already a formal role in relation to the Assembly Commission. Secondly, we know the committee is considering an amendment to insert independent into the title of the board, and as you know, the independence of the board is something that the Commission has been carefully guarding, and we have particularly been focused on the detail of how that independence can be embodied in the detail of the bill. And this is why we were not keen on the suggestion from the Committee on Standards and Privileges that temporary appointments could be voted on by members of on the floor of the Assembly. We are also reluctant to include too many provisions in the bill in relation to the board's operation, lest it take away from allowing the board to make its own decisions and function independently. While the Commission has been less concerned about reflecting independence in the title of the board, and there are probably a number of names which would do that, we are open to taking the committee's view on that matter. Thirdly, we note the range of views that have been expressed to the committee during their call for evidence. We know you have heard from some of the bodies which have responsibility for determining the salaries of members in other jurisdictions. We hope that you will have seen that there are different models for dealing with these issues in different places. The Assembly Commission has sought to put forward arrangements which take account of our own circumstances. We know you have received a considerable amount of public responses. It is understandable that these issues reflect a range of opinions, and we acknowledge that the second stage of the bill on the floor that there is no good time to discuss issues related to the salaries of politicians. However, we repeat again, this bill itself does not change member salaries. It will only be the independent board which will decide what the level of salaries should be. It is important for us to return to that point that this bill has been brought forward to deal with matters of process and to ensure that we regularise the legal position following the resolution of the Assembly back in June 2020. And finally, can we just thank the committee again for all the work regarding the bill, and we're open to taking any additional questions that you have to some of the matters I have raised and any that we have not pointed. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Nuala, I'll kick off. I know there's a few other members that want to ask a couple of questions. You did mention it there about the committee have, had a lot of discussion around inserting the independent in the name, and it's something that we've heard from responses that we've got back. Can I ask? I know you said you're open to it. Is that something that the Commission is minded to take forward, or happy that the committee then takes that forward?
I think it's already been alluded by Nuala in terms of what we've been focusing on is obviously the detail of the bill, but the committee we believe that the independent title would emphasise the point. So the Assembly Commission is willing to accept the committee's view on that, and if you want to bring that forward, we're content.
Okay, thanks for that. Just something else that came up through our presentation, I think it was from IPSA, was around the communication. Whenever they were making determinations there, how that was communicated publicly. So would there be any possibility if the boards, whenever the board is established, and I know you mentioned it's operational, you don't want to get too bogged down into that, but just what's your view on it, of it? Whenever the board does meet, would those minutes be able to be published and communicated then to the general public?
So the Assembly Commission does not have any issue with there being a requirement for the board's minutes to be published. The publication of such minutes is standard practice in the interest of transparency. Indeed, the IFRP published its minutes, so we would be broadly content.
No issue with that. Okay, then just one last thing from me then. We have heard it as well about some members possibly wanting the provision to be able to opt out of receiving if the board should come to a decision to offer any higher salary. What's the board's the Commission's view on that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So yes, we've heard members allude to this as well. Under Section 47 of the Northern Ireland Act, the Assembly is required to pay members any such salaries as are determined. So therefore, there can't be a provision within the bill for members to opt out of that. That's an accepted matter. So it would be outside our ability to make a provision in the bill for that. So it's open to members what they choose to do or how they choose to spend any salary that they receive.
Thank you. Padraig, you had indicated you want to go.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for the presentation and the answers so far. I suppose there were just two questions for me, and they were more points of clarity, really. So when we had IPSA, and one of the things that they had talked about was a 5-year, I suppose, disbarment on anybody who was an MLA from being a member of the board. Just wanted to get a sense from yourselves of, is this something the Commission's looked at? And I suppose, is this something that you would consider relevant, important, how best to deal with that?
Yeah, so it's a wee bit of a, if I can use the term head melt, getting around exactly what way IPSA did this. I think their 5-year disbarment that they had on a member being a member of the board was actually for that person to become, they may have been a former member, but then for them to become just an ordinary member of the board, there had to be a 5-year sort of fire break between their service and then being able to apply to be a member of the board. But obviously, if you want to, there is a requirement there that there might be one of the members that would be a former member, and there's sort of no time limits that are set around that. They would just, as the category is former member, that's the criteria for that. But there isn't an absolute, that's not that there must be, it's just that one of the members could be a former member. So there's sort of two categories, those that are ordinary members and the person that is the former member. And that 5-year rule from IPSA is about those that are ordinary members, so there's a wee bit of a fire break there.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. And I suppose my second question then is just around the members' expenses. That was something that had been raised quite a few times in terms of the citizen space. So, I mean, it's just to get kind of the rationale or how that conversation developed as to why that wouldn't be included in the determination. Was there a view as to whether that should be decided by this board or by retained within the Assembly Commissions, just to get a bit of clarity, I suppose, on that?
I'm happy. I suppose there was already a resolution of the Assembly, and it was the Assembly's will that it's taken back in terms of the expenses, and that has been determined. So there's no view, and we're bringing this forward again. And this way we're very clear in terms of this bill that it's very specific in terms of salaries only and not looking at a wider aspect of business.
And we also had made the point that the Commission, there were some matters in which the Commission could not wait any longer for a new panel to be, or a panel to either be reconstituted or a new panel set up. And we spoke about this at second stage. One of those issues, for example, being maternity allowances and pay for staff, and access to disability schemes to ensure that offices are compliant. And those were things that we felt weren't necessary to actually wait for so many years to actually get the panel up, and there was decisions that were made in the last panel that actually didn't reflect nor allow for those issues to actually be dealt with.
Paula?
Thank you. Some of my questions have already been asked, but I suppose I just want to pick up the thread around the disbarment and former MLAs. I suppose one of the issues that has come up at committee has been around the fact that this will probably come into force in the next mandate. So there may be a scenario, as we've seen in Northern Ireland before, where an MLA has lost their seat but then they've come back and they've regained a seat. So is there any thoughts in terms of how you could actually disbar somebody from then standing? I'm not saying we should, but it's maybe an issue in terms of the perception in the wider public.
Yeah, maybe just to pick up on that, I suppose just to deter out the issues there. First of all, in terms of this determination, it will, if this panel is put in place, they will make a determination in this mandate,
Yes.
and initially relevant to the next mandate. But that determination will be taken during before 2027. In terms of then whether you can or cannot stand as an MLA, those are accepted matters. They're matters that are related to London. They decide the rules and regulations about who does and doesn't. So for us to regulate that, it would cause difficulty. But we also are of the general opinion that it's a really long journey to go to get a few extra quid to go in, be part of a board, set the wages at a higher level, and then decide afterwards that you want to use that. And you know, the panel that ultimately set the MLA's wages, that may not be the best springboard to get elected as a member. So, but that's for people's own choice in the future. But I think it's the 2011 Act, or one of those previous acts that details who can or cannot stand for election, but we can't control what's on that list.
Gary?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to the Commission for clarifying the number of points. Also, I do welcome your sort of acceptance of including the word independent, because, as you know, whilst in terms of practice it is important, but certainly also in terms of perception as well. People need to know that it's not only in perception, but it's also in practice. So I welcome that. For me, and it's just a follow on from Padraig's point, when I assess the evidence in terms of citizen space, people were overwhelmingly positive about the fact that member salaries and pensions would be determined by an independent panel or board rather than the Commission. So I think that that's widely accepted. There was a more differing view when it came to whether or not the Assembly Commission or a panel should look after the members' resources or the office cost allowances. And I think that certainly in the public domain there is a bit of a unawareness as to what exactly the office costs are, the fact that actually we don't personally get that money. So I suppose I think it's just important maybe just to go back and to clarify as to the fact that why the Commission feel that it wouldn't be appropriate. And I take, Trevor, the point that the Assembly already decided on this, but as to why that view was taken, and actually I suppose the downside of what happened previously in relation to the service provided to the general public as a result of some of the determinations that were made.
I suppose maybe I can kick off, someone else maybe wants to pick up. I suppose actually, and you have actually answered the question yourself. The previous determination left various matters out, which Nuala has alluded to, even down to bizarre situations. I mean, we want to be accessible, each of us want to be accessible to the public, but you weren't allowed to actually have your address, you weren't allowed to have your phone number in the sign, so we're actually making yourself difficult to contact from members of the public. Bearing in mind, a good number of the society actually work, so they can drive past our offices, they can see names, but they can't see numbers. And that was a bizarre situation, and that was a simple situation that could have been resolved by the independent panel. And then, as Nuala's alluded, disability access, which is up there, and indeed Andy would be strong on that if he was here today, given Andy's own disability. He knows exactly what it's like. So that wasn't considered by the previous panel, or as Nuala's alluded, in terms of the maternity leave. So all of those things had to be done in a timely manner, and this was the only opportunity we had to do it at the time we done, and it went by resolution of the committee and accepted by them at that stage.
Thanks for that.
Even just coming on the back of that as well, there was so many different streams in terms of expenses that it took the last body such a long time to come to the determinations, and then when they did, there were so many things that were just way off the mark that they then had to be rectified. But also the last determination built in a number of instances, a sort of almost like a cost of living increase to it, which means that we don't need to go back, unless there's a massive big problem, we don't need to go back and examine those. And there is a cost if a panel's meeting every day and they're suddenly having to start look right down to whether you have phone numbers and signs, what size your signs are, how, disability access, so they're going to discuss how wide it is, how high it is. You end up, there's a cost that comes from that as well, but I think the Commission has tidied that up after the 2016 determination really well. It's set there. There aren't massive changes really that need to be made to that going forward. To then pass that to an independent panel, that could just bog them down with work, which is then going to cost the public purse a lot of money as well.
No, that's useful, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Any other members?
No, Chair, but more things have been covered. I think just want to thank again the members of the Commission and the clerks and the staff for everything they've done and for the engagement they've had. I think, as Gary says, that notion of independence is critical, and you've highlighted the reasons for that, but you've also articulated rightly why we need the change that's there. And just want to thank you for everything you've done so far. Appreciate it.
Okay. Can I just, for us to undertake our formal clause by clause then, can I just ask when the Commission is going to lay their amendment? Do you know when that will be?
We haven't. We probably need a meeting just to discuss that actually,
Okay.
and figure out just in terms of the wording and things of it. So we haven't done that yet, but I assume that will be imminent.
And I don't think outside the bounds there's possibility to have that for next Tuesday for the Business Committee next week, because that still leaves us a week.
Might be tight for drafting. but-
Need to be led as an amendment, would it? Maybe we could ask for some
Yes.
guidance from our guys. Leslie, is that?
I mean, we'll have a look. We'll obviously try and get the amendment laid as quickly as we can, because we have it drafted and ready to go. So we'll sort out the process for doing that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, members, just before we move on, does anybody have any comments or further actions just arising from that? No? Okay. Apologies. Okay, then can I seek agreement that we move into closed session just to allow the committee to continue our deliberations now on the bill? Yep. Great.
Committee Room 29. Sound. 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 Committee Room 29. Sound.
That will be Tuesday the 1st of April at 1 o'clock in room 30.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you.
Committee Room 29. Sound. Committee Room 29. Sound.